Hey everybody, Jay Schlansky here from the Fifth Trooper Network. I just want to take a moment to thank you for checking out this show. Did you know that over at thefifthtrooper.com we have tons of other content, including blogs, other podcasts, all kinds of stuff. In addition, if you want access to exclusive content, you can join us on patreon.com/thefifthtrooper and join at any level and you'll get access to exclusive blog articles, access to our private Discord, and much more. So please check us out, and thank you so much for all your support.
Welcome to the Notorious Scoundrels, a Star Wars Legion podcast bringing you the latest news, general perspective, and competitive discussion.
Hello and welcome back to the Notorious Scoundrels podcast. I'm Kyle. I'm here with Mike.
Hey,
what's going on?
It's another Monday. We played some more Legion. We've got some stuff to talk about. I'm ready for it. How are you doing?
Good. We've got two tournaments this past weekend to talk about, both in French-speaking vicinities, or at least countries that have French as a significant language.
Yeah, France adjacent.
Yeah, France adjacent. Yep. So there was a tournament in Canada, and there was the tournament in France, which obviously is much more than France adjacent. It's just France. And then you also had a Rebel list that you liked, that you played, which I know people have been pining for. So we're going to talk about that as well.
Yeah, I kind of spent this week at the anvil, if you will, molding and shaping a Rebel list into form. So I've taken it and kind of reshaped it over a couple different games. Yeah, and we can definitely talk about it today for sure.
Awesome. All right, let's talk about these tournaments first. The first one was in Canada. I don't actually know where in Canada.
It says Mohawk College Fennel Campus, Ontario, Canada.
I have no idea where that is. Sorry, Canadians.
I'm gonna assume that it's close to Buffalo because the Buffalo crowd is there.
Yeah, I would imagine they wouldn't drive too far. I mean, Canada is big, right?
I mean, it depends. I think yes, is Canada geographically a very large space?
But
Absolutely.
most of the population,
but 90%
like,
of the Canadian population will live within 10 miles of the US border. So is it really that big of a place? You know, I don't know.
That's fair. Anyway, somewhere in Canada, near the US border, was this tournament. And it was won by Luke Cook from the Buffalo crowd. That would be two-time world champion Luke Cook. So it's like I think this is the first tournament that he went to. This was a grand tournament.
Yeah, rare outing from the world champ. Putting.
Yeah, Luke likes to kind of just like drop in,
Yeah.
But between world championships, he'll just kind of parachute into like a handful of tournaments over the course of the year, and do this. So yeah, he ran basically Austin Miller's list from Crucible, which was Anakin arcs with the 4 sniper strike teams. So I think it's almost identical, if not the same. But
yeah, that doesn't surprise me. I know they
I think they cooked it up together, probably.
Yeah.
So yeah, they practiced together, so that's not surprising. This is not a Luke copying a list from someone else kind of situation, because Luke doesn't do that. But yeah, so yeah, Anakin arc's good. I don't, we could spend another 45 minutes talking about that, but I'm sure that's not what people want to hear. So we're gonna move on.
What? People don't want to hear that. I'm sorry. What?
Yeah. Some other takeaways from this tournament. There was actually a couple of Rebels that made the top 8, which is encouraging. This is the first like reasonably decent sized tournament where there were any Rebel players that even had a winning record.
Yeah, I would say this is the first weekend that Rebels are seeing some dividends, which is good. Good.
One of these lists is titled, I won't say it so we don't have to bleep it out, but it's FU Anakin.
Yep.
Is the name of the list. And it's Cassian, Jin, K2, some Rebel troopers with ions, which I presume are for the commandos, Wookiees, Pathfinders, 2 Tauntauns, and a speeder truck. This is quite an eclectic combination of units here, which I guess every Rebel list is, basically.
Yes, 100%. Yeah, I have
That
thoughts
was
about that.
Sam Solo with aptly named
I will
list
say,
there.
I don't hate the ion because I mean there are what, 3 units here with ion guns?
There's
Because the
2. Oh,
Pathfinders also,
Biston. Yeah.
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 And that is exactly the number of ion guns you need to shut down 3 commandos, which
That is
I don't
100%
think
accurate.
that's a coincidence. Um,
Yeah, and they all lost their exhaust. The Rebel ones never had cumbersome. So, and they also gained critical. So it's, it's a neat way to convert those poor Rebel Trooper surges that need converting. They are expensive now,
I
but
are they?
yeah, they're. Let me see. Let me.
I mean, I guess I don't see. I put Bistan in a lot of my Rebel lists, but
Biston is reasonable. Biston got cheaper, but the
it's the Iron Gun's
actual ion
27.
gun, yeah,
She's like 67 points. It's like 1 point more than a DLT. The DLT is
right.
definitely better into things that aren't.
Things that you can't use the ion tokens for.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But I could definitely see if like droids was like really good, like people taking these as like a meta call at this points value for sure.
yeah. I mean, it's the same dice as the DLT. It has critical like the DLT. It has the impact one and ion one, which the DLT doesn't have. Of course, it's range 1 to 3, which is the primary drawback compared to the DLT. But how often in New Legion are you actually taking range 4 pot shots anyway?
Well, if Rebel Troopers get to range 3, they're generally dead. Uh, so I mean, I do think the Rebels it's a little bit more like reasonable than other factions to take the range 4 gun, but yeah, I generally agree with you.
Yeah, you can't just hang out at range 4 though, or you just lose.
Yeah,
But
I mean that's why Rebels have been not doing so often.
sure, I'm just saying, like, I think the value of poking, even on a unit that wants to be doing it because it's very fragile, is low because there's a huge opportunity cost there, which is that you're not winning the game.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I think Luke and Austin's lists sort of disagree with that premise, but maybe that's because everything else in the list is just good enough to over supersede it. But
Yeah, and I think there's a significant reliability, having played a lot of DLT Rebel Troopers, there's a significant reliability difference too between like an arc strike and a DLT at range 4.
yeah, the arc strikes are always just going to be 2 Pierce 1 unless they have like dodge tokens or something.
Right. Whereas the DLT's kind of like you think with that dice pool you're going to get a hit or a crit or something reasonably reliably, but it's often just one. And
Yes.
sometimes it's none.
Yeah.
And you
Yeah.
don't usually have access to aim tokens because rebels have trouble getting those in any significant quantities. So I've found the DLT hotshot pool to be a real crapshoot, frankly. Whereas arcs, arc strikes are not.
No, they're like
But
100% hit rate with all the token shares.
right, yeah,
Like,
and they can usually add Pierce to it, and they have sharpshooter,
yeah.
and there's a red dice in there. So
Yeah, and on turn 1 they have 3 aim tokens. So
right,
it's
yeah. So I think those two things are. I'm not saying like there isn't any long range small dice pools that are valuable, but I don't think that it's the DLT. Let's put it that way.
that's fair. That's fair. I
So
can get
if
behind that.
so if you're paying one more point to get something that you can add impact and ion to, that is probably still at your primary engagement range, and then that seems decent to me. I think that's pretty defensible.
Yeah.
Be great into droids.
That's what I mean. Like, you like it's cheap enough now, and the drawback is not enough to like make it feel like a drawback because the drawback is gone.
Yeah.
Uh, that droids sort of like, oh, you got like 3 or 4 ion guns, and all of a sudden it's kind of like, oh, my B2s are
Not doing anything.
yeah, hope I bought some repair, I guess.
Yeah, and if you did, you're burning it, taking
To
off ion tokens instead
yeah,
of bringing models back. So
yeah, for sure. For
then
sure.
it's effectively in that situation like a poison token, right? Because it's a wound that you would otherwise be repairing that you have to use a repair act on just to remove a token, basically.
Yeah.
So, and the other rebel list was Leia's being Ahsoka with some naked rebel troopers, naked vets in a Mark II, and then Mandos basically with a 247.
Yeah, it's
So,
like
and
a Mando character list, I guess.
yeah,
Um,
very eclectic.
yeah. Yeah.
All right. There were also a couple Empire and a droid player, and also 2 more guard players, Republic players. So in the
Yeah.
top 8. All right. This French tournament, I think, also is pretty interesting. This one was actually won by a Rebel player.
It was
Tig Tar.
notably not undefeated, but did win. Did win.
Yes. It looks like there were some draws here too. It's not super clear to me like what this tournament structure is. Sorry, French participants. But there's like some 3 and O's and ones that
If I didn't
obviously
know better, this almost looks like people like drew into like a top cut sort of situation.
right. But there's no top cut here that's evident.
I just like the chance that you actually draw a game in this new edition is just so low.
Right, and 4 different players did it.
And they all happen
So
to be people that were like in top 8 contention. It just, I don't know.
yeah, if we're looking at the the Swiss results here, and there's like a separate top cut that we're missing, French players, please let us know. You can actually put the top cut on the same tournament. You don't have to
Let
make
me
a
let
separate
me just
one.
look and see if there's a separate event in here that I
Yeah.
missed. That where they like maybe like hit a top cut or something. Because sometimes that happens.
Yeah, I think it would be strange, especially as that's only 4 games, right? 3 and 0 and 1, and there was also a 4-0 drop, and then the other 4 players in the top 8 all
Yes,
played 6 games. So,
there's a second tournament. There's a top 8.
oh, okay.
Maybe the rebel player did not win.
Oh, all right. Well,
Here, I'm gonna link this to you, and
okay.
and you'll have it.
This is just bad journalism on my part.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, in fairness, I feel like I was duped. I didn't know where to look. Um,
Okay, well,
unfortunately,
scratch that.
this is
Rebel
not
player.
going to paint the story that we were trying
Yeah.
to paint.
Yeah, we were so excited before. We were like, "Hey, we found a tournament where a Rebel player won." Oh, actually, that's not what happened. The Rebel player did make it to top 4, so I think
Yes.
that's the best that a Rebel player has done. Um, that was actually a different Rebel player. Yeah, I'm having trouble tracking like how this top 8 from the Swiss result translated to the top cut. But anyway, the Rebel player that made top 8 and made it to the top 4 was Johann Dirt. I'm sorry. I cannot pronounce French names. So Lviv, Lvivi. I don't know. I really apologize. Sorry, Johann. But yeah, and he was running. What was he running? Let's see. Luke. That would be Commander Luke Din. Rebel troopers with a couple with the SX-21, a couple with just medic, and commandos, tons, flamethrower ATRTs, and land speeders. And the land speeders only have the rifle gunner, so they're basically naked.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, interesting.
Yeah. So it looked like it's like Darth Vader ended up winning this one.
Yep.
Um,
Vader veers. This is a Blizzard list.
yes, it was Blizzard Force with an ATST.
The first time we've seen bikes do anything, I think.
Yeah, I don't think they're very good. Like, I mean, I see they definitely won this tournament. I I guess they can probably be in a good list, but I don't think the unit themselves is very. It's you can steal some games because they're super speedy, but the second something turns and shoots at them,
They immediately die.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And this was Romaine SWL, which I assume is Star Wars Legion and not part of the name. So yeah, notably he took 3 speeder bikes instead of 4 and opted for an ATSD. So
Yeah.
yeah, clearly, I mean, this seems like a situation where you're like, I've got 200 points left. What do I do? I guess I got to take speeder bikes.
Well, and I actually think like the one ATST in this list, I actually think is like pretty good because Veers can guidance it.
Yep.
And that actually turns it into kind of a monster, I suspect.
Yeah.
You kind of just shove it up there and like
Do some free standbys on it.
Yeah, you're just gonna proc the standby. There's nothing they can really do. So
Yep. Yeah, and these are the old school HRUs too, with the DLT and the RT97 combo. So this is a very old school Blizzard list. All right.
isn't that the best combo?
It is, but it's very expensive now.
That's fair.
And it's still only, a 5 wound unit. So it's defensively, it's still a Stormtrooper unit.
Yeah,
So,
I'd also like to pitch here that there are 2 Republic lists in this top 8, and Anakin is in neither of them.
yeah, the French meta is weird is not the right word because that has like a negative connotation. Uh, they're, I mean, this is the same meta that 14 activation Ewoks came out of. So innovative, maybe. Let's go with that.
Yeah,
They-
they are
they
both
certainly-
Yoda lists,
Yeah,
which, nice to see.
the
One's
French.
Yoda Bad Batch, the other one's looks like Kashyyyk Defenders.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. The French are experimenters. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
All right. Do you want to tell us about your rebel list, Mike?
Yeah. Let me pull it up real quick just so that I don't play lists like this. I'd like to preface this whole conversation with I'm very outside my comfort zone. And I gotta fix this list because I was messing around with it before we got in here. So this list is built on a premise that the best rebel unit in the game is a clone trooper.
Go on.
And that clone trooper is Bad Batch. Turns out.
That's multiple clone troopers, just to be clear.
Yes, yeah. That's fair. That's a fair assessment too. So basically I was like, all right, well, how do I just like abuse Bad Batch to the max while also like trying to put together a list that doesn't immediately die on the table and all this other stuff. So I came up with a 16 activation Bad Batch list.
Okay. That's a lot of things.
It is a lot of things. It is, so it's a lot of it is like sort of, I'm going to put it into air quotes, pass activations, but it's only on the first 2 turns. So I've come to the conclusion that the center of most good rebel lists is 3 laser cannon ATRTs.
Okay. Explain.
Yes. Explain. Yeah, so there's 60 points.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so they're
affordable.
super cheap.
Yeah.
Okay. They're cheaper than basically all the core units with all the good like heavy weapons on your rebel core units. They are armor 2, so they are effectively like, think of them as a core unit in heavy cover at all times.
Old heavy cover
rules, right? Yeah. Additionally, you can line them up so that you get just like a wall that you build out of your deployment zone that you can hide the rest of your stuff behind. So you're bringing line of sight blockers to the table along with range 4 shots that can, impact 9 on 3 red dice and 6 black dice. It's like you're also have like a pretty good armor skew. Like if somebody shows up with armor, you're gonna be happy with your choices. So I for 180 points, I don't think you can really go wrong there. It gives rebels a bunch of things that they can work with. It gives them range. It gives them line of sight blockers. It gives them durability. The fact that ATRT surge to block now actually makes them like significantly more durable, almost like 100% more durable. Turns
Yeah.
out.
Yeah, they save twice as many times.
Yeah. So we've got the ATRTs, we've got Bad Batch. And
Well, one more question on the ATRTs.
yes.
Did you find the range on the laser, the minimum range, to be an issue?
No, because if you're in the like situation, let me back up. Yes, but is really how I should answer
Okay.
that. In that, generally speaking, if you're within the minimum range band, that means you can move and melee whatever you would be shooting anyways, and that actually upgrades your pool unless the target has armor.
Yeah, those kicky feet are pretty good.
Yeah, and they're pretty good. They're like significantly more good now. I've been finding that like I've been putting like my objective tokens for like the intel mission on my ATRTs and stuff because like they're kind of hard to kill in comparison to my other stuff.
Yeah.
Like
I wouldn't say they're objectively harder to kill. They're less easy to kill than the rest of the rebel units.
yeah, and they actually like a double move off them is actually like we're just way faster than a trooper unit. So you can
Right.
kind of keep them like way back and then like move them up quickly to like score a point or something.
Right.
So yeah, the range thing has come up. I think it came up once against dewbacks where I like definitely wish I could have been shooting instead of meleeing them, but
Yeah.
that seemed kind of niche.
Have you considered the flamethrower? I know it's more expensive, which possibly defeats the purpose, but some really potential home run pools at closer range.
I haven't yet. I haven't tried it. It would be an extra 15 points, which I actually think I could probably find pretty easily in this list. But I don't know. The laser cannons can like put most of a stormtrooper unit in the ground on turn one because you just like scout on the board, aim, and shoot.
Yeah, then somebody has to make 3 saves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. So yeah, Bad Batch, 3 RTs. We've got Leia Organa in there, and I think I've decided that Leia is definitely the best Rebel commander.
Okay.
There are 2 reasons for this. The first, well, no, there's really one reason, and it's she's got 2 command slots. Which
One of
allows
which is for Underworld, I assume. Right?
yeah, it allows you to take Underworld and Improv on the same commander,
Okay.
which is pretty huge. And also No Time for Sorrows on Bad Batch is really good.
Yep.
So she's pretty much just there for the command slots. Everything else she does is like fine, but whatever. I do have a second commander in this list, and the second commander is Wicket.
Okay. That's not what I expected you to say.
Who has been an absolute all-star for 73 points. Wicket has Forest Dwellers, which gives him an additional Scout 1 and a dodge token at the top of turn 1.
Yep.
Wicket is here pretty much just for scouting party.
Cheap access to scouting party is great.
Cheap access to scouting party is great. And Wicket is also just super annoying and basically has Luke's lightsaber. New Commander Luke's lightsaber.
Yeah.
It's like obviously like it's worse, but you're paying half as much. So for what you're getting, like 2 red, 1 black Pierce 1 is like not that different than 2 red, 3 black Pierce 1 when you're kind of getting into the weeds there. The floor on those pools is pretty similar.
Yeah, I mean it's like 2 to 3 hits basically, and
Yeah.
sometimes Luke gets like 4 instead of
it's
right.
like yeah.
But Wicked's 70 points and Luke is 130.
Exactly. Yeah. And now that he basically can't take force push, it's like, why would I pay for Luke when I can take Wicket?
Yeah. I mean, legally he can take force push, but it's 40 points and he doesn't have master the force.
Oh
So
yeah, no,
yeah.
And Wicket, like, just kind of, when he's not in range to melee things, he just like picks up a stormtrooper or a clone, and you're like, blah di da, whatever. Been very, very good, very good. I've had no complaints about Wicket. So with that being said, obviously the scouting party here, that brings me to the next kind of combo-y piece of this list, which is the Ewok contingent. Ewok slingers for 35 points are insane.
Yeah, I think that's always been true, but now that everything is a lot closer,
It is
it's
absurd.
more
They
true.
are
Yeah.
they throw 6 black dice with a surge token.
Yeah.
Which is like often at least 4. Like, I don't know. Every time I just like shoot with these guys at range 2, I'm like, what?
Wait, what just happened?
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
like, what? These guys are 35 points. I don't understand what's going on. And the fact that you're taking underworld connections on Leia for Bad Batch already means that you get to take 2 kind of for
Right.
free.
Mhm.
It's like a free roll. So, 2 Ewok slingers, no upgrades. And then I've got 2 Ewok skirmishers, both with call to arms, because that's the number of call to arms you can include. And they just sit behind the ATRTs and walk up with them and then charge through them.
Yeah, because you can do that now.
Yes. Which is super great. And they can't be shot until that happens. So that's pretty fantastic.
Do you have any other upgrades on them?
Nope, just call to arms. And then I've got like a random smattering of other stuff in here. I've got 1 rebel trooper and 2 fleets. I'm not sure if that's like the obligatory core you
Right.
have to take.
Yeah.
The fleets kind of like just are, add the charge units to 4, and the rebel troopers are like just a sacrificial unit that gets thrown in there. I've got a naked unit of pathfinders in here too. This is a lot of stuff. I don't
It's
know.
a lot of things. Yeah.
Yeah. The pathfinders have actually been a lot better than I thought they were. They allow me to kind of toss down a unit before the slingers. And at like range 4, take like a range 4 shot and then like slide behind the ATRTs or like behind a line. It's like, I don't know, you get like 1 to 2 hits
Yeah.
and a pass activation, and then when they close to range 3, they're decent. And if all that wasn't enough, I have a fully kitted land speeder in here with a rifle gunner, a rocket gunner, and a blaster.
Are you done listing things?
No, I actually have one more thing. So I do want to talk about the land speeder. The land speeder is actually, the order control on this list kind of looks loose until you realize that you got improv on Leia and you just play Leia's 3-pip on turn 1, and you hand out orders to Bad Batch, the unit I'm about to talk about, and Leia, and then the land speeder is like your improv target. You only got 1 heavy, so like
Right.
you pitch it back.
You throw it back. Yeah.
You throw it back, and then after the first time you throw it back, Leia just goes and recovers improv, and you're fine.
Yep.
So it's like you kind of have an order on it, anyways. I found the land speeder to be very good. In that it is just as fragile as the ATRTs, and yes, you're paying an extra 45 points, but it kind of adds some like oomph to it, and being able to just like triple move onto like an uncontested point or whatever is like actually very proven to be excellent in like a flexible, you kind of have to shoot the rest of my stuff. Like, you have to deal with Bad Batch. You can't really afford to shoot the land speeder, so have fun. And the fact that it's got armor still is like, makes it kind of hard to, it makes it pesky. It's like in the pesky category.
Yeah. Like if you want to kill it, you can kill it, but you got to dedicate more things to it than you probably want to.
Yes. And the last unit in here that I haven't talked about yet can technically make it even harder. So I've got R2D2 with C3PO in here as my 16th activation. I'm not sure that this guy's gonna stay in here. He's here for secret mission. Because that seems like a thing you should be able to like pull off with regularity with 16 if you can't pull it off in a 16 activation list, I don't know what
Then
you're
you can't do it in anything.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be honest, I think the secret mission rules are terrible. I've been trying to like make it work. The fact that you got to start a turn in the zone and then stay in the zone is absolutely insane. It should just be what it used to be. I don't know why it's not. It's silly. I don't know. Basically you have to be in their zone at the end of turn 4, which means you basically like you infiltrate R2 and you have to move directly at their deployment zone.
The entire game.
Yeah. Yeah. Which like with how like he's only a 6 health white save unit, like he instantly dies in melee against like a lot of things in the game now. So I don't know. It's and because he's moving up so aggressively, like you also have a problem with turning on inconspicuous.
Yeah, because he's just gonna be the closest thing that to shoot.
Yeah. So I don't know. I'm considering taking him out, but that's what I've been running. And he actually like, if they shoot your land speeder and you need to repair it, you can do that. So also synergizes well with Leia, but again, if you're trying to do secret mission, you get to do neither of those things. So I don't know. Anywho,
how did you find
what's that?
How did you find playing 16 units to be? Just as far as the sheer quantity is concerned.
I found it exhausting, is what I found.
Okay.
It's like playing with 2 armies, is how it feels. I definitely was attempting to play it quickly in the last game that I played, and it's still like I think 16 is like more reasonable than some of the lists that we've been talking about, and they're like you're like activation padding, but you're not. I still have things that kill you.
Right.
You know. But yeah, I don't know. And this list doesn't even abuse any of the like detachment mechanics or anything like that. This is like you would be able to do this no matter what, basically. I don't know. It definitely like I think I could learn to play this more quickly, but it's like one of those situations where you're like, okay, I start the game, my opponent has 5 pass champions, and so I have like 7 units on the board. And my opponent has like, I don't know what, 3?
3, yeah.
Or something, depends, on like if they played standing orders or who went first. And it just it complicates the game state to a point where like it just slows it down. It slows it down a lot. I'm sure that like I could learn to play this list faster. But this list is also like made to, I think the last game I played, like I was killing more activations out of my opponent's list than they were killing out of mine, because like the range on this list is actually like pretty good. With the units that can shoot long range, they're like pretty consistent pools. And notably, all of the stuff in this list, minus the Rebel Core units, it's actually like pretty hard to kill outright in like 1 or 2 shots. We're talking about like 6-man low profile units or 6 health armor units, like or 6 health heroes or Bad Batch, right? So like outside of the fleet troopers and rebel trooper, everything in this list kind of doesn't immediately die when it gets shot, so it kind of stays on the table a little longer. Yeah, I think I ended up on like turn 3, it was like 15 to 8 this activation count. which is still like a lot of stuff,
Yeah.
you know. And I don't know. I think this is like moving in the right direction as far as like making like a rebel list that I would feel good enough about to bring to a tournament, but it definitely like the length of game is a problem.
Yeah. Even when you've got two 10 of activation lists facing off against each other, I've been finding that you're pushing up against that time limit pretty consistently anyway. So
Yeah. And yeah, the other thing is like with these lists, the thing that I found the hardest to think about with this list, which might be actually less of an issue with the like 21 activation list, possibly, is that I have at least one of every token type in this list. And I think the 21 list, like it's like pretty heavy on the core units.
yeah, there's 12 core tokens in the
Yeah,
yeah.
which you know, when your bag is like 50% one thing, you can kind of be like, you can plan a little bit more soundly. I
Yeah.
think. Whereas with this list, I'm like, okay, Bad Batch has got an order. I've got 15 things in the bag, and like the highest rate to pull anything is like 1/3 in its core. It makes planning difficult for sure. So like you when you go to the bag, you just like you pull it out and you actually kind of have to think about it. Um, I don't know.
Well,
Oh,
I'm glad that you've found a rebel list that certainly you seem to think has some promise. I mean, it seems like rebel players are starting to figure it out a little bit generally, based on the past handful of tournaments that we've seen. So between the 21 activation one at Crucible and then these couple at the Canadian and French tournaments, um, I think rebels just have to kind of embrace the smorgasbord, if
yeah.
you will.
I will say I think that this is maybe a good juncture to talk about. I don't know if like how deep or how long we've been talking already.
About 40 minutes.
Okay. Maybe this is like an introduction to a topic we talk about at a later date.
Okay.
But I actually think the biggest reason rebels are suffering at this juncture, I think, is the lack of control in turn zero in the mission deck department. And I think one of the things that we saw in the previous edition is that like rebel lists often bid heavily because their objectives really mattered.
And you could skew for objectives.
And you could skew for objectives. And I actually think that there are like I think rebels should basically be playing shifting priorities, breakthrough, and the intel mission. And the other three they should try to not touch. The other three being what, bunker assault, uh close the pocket, and
Recover.
recover the research.
Or
I
is
think
that the
recover the
intel one?
research is like
And
sort of it's probably you definitely need to avoid close the pocket and bunker assault.
yeah, you don't want to be fighting over 1 to 2 single points on the
Yes.
map, basically.
If as a rebel player, if you are not spreading your opponent out and trying to like move them out of position, you are going to fail. And I think the biggest thing is that 50% of the time you have no control over that. And and when I say that, what I mean is 50% of the time, if you're not red player, your opponent can just ban into one of their primaries and you're kind of up a creek.
Yep.
Because all of the meta lists right now that are very good are definitely playing close the pocket and are definitely playing bunker assault
Yep.
because they're just trying to get you in front of them so they can kill you.
Right.
Um, and I don't know what to do about that. That's like not a solvable problem with the new turn zero mechanics. And this is kind of like going back to the old days. You could skew your battle deck, but like we set it up in such a way that like your opponent could like have control over making it like not the worst thing for them. But rebels actually like can't really play those objectives well. And that is an issue. Again, I'm not going to claim to have the answer for it. I definitely think the list that I just presented has some solutions to trying to play those objectives, because at the end of the day, if your list can't play those objectives, you're not going to win a tournament, because eventually
You're gonna
get in the top cut, and like 1 to 2 of those games, you're going to lose the proverbial bid,
the die roll. Yeah.
Yeah. And frankly, if you're in the top cut, you're probably going to be playing against Anakin or Vader at some juncture. And they're gonna try and put you in that position. So yeah. All that's to say, like, I think that turn zero needs to get looked at. I don't know. I mean, we could talk about ways to like list build around that. That's why I said this might be like a precursor to maybe like a longer topic on a longer episode, that just like we can kind of talk about our feelings on turn zero and all that jazz. And I know that we've kind of been like foreshadowing that a little bit over the past couple episodes, but like now that it's been out 2 months or whatever, how we feel now as opposed to how we felt a month and a half ago or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, when it was first debuted, I think we basically said this is going to be a problem for skew lists, and I think, I'm having trouble parsing the various interviews here, but I think they even said that was essentially by design, that they didn't want players to be able to skew for objectives.
Well, I think the main issue is that these aren't skew lists. Like
they're just normal lists.
Yeah, we're fundamentally talking about like this faction cannot play those objectives in a way that is. I suspect that if you looked at Rebel win rates on bunker assault and close the pocket against Republic and Empire lists, it would be really, really low.
Yeah.
And I don't know. Like I do think at the end of the day, I think the missions are cool. I think they're unique. I think they have a lot more flavor to them than I originally gave them credit for. I do think they're different enough that like they are skewable. They are like, this is what I built my list to do, and like
the missions themselves are skewable, but the turn zero process does not allow for that, because there's a 50% chance that you just simply won't get to play any of your missions, and you have no control over. There's no bid or other way to kind of tweak it in a way that makes it more likely for that to happen for you.
There's also very few ways to compensate for it.
Right.
Whereas before you're like, okay, we're gonna get this really crappy mission. I'm gonna like make sure they don't get the condition they want or the deployment they want.
Right.
Or
you could hedge in the other rows, basically.
But that doesn't really happen now. The secondary is kind of like, some of the secondaries are definitely like better to have than others, but like most of the secondaries, it doesn't matter what your list is, you can probably score it for the most part. I think the secondaries are much more fair all around. I think they're much more universal, and the advantages just don't matter. Like, so, but at the end of the day, the secondary, if you can't win the primary, you are gonna lose the game.
Yep.
Because the secondary doesn't matter enough.
Yeah, it matters a little bit, but it doesn't matter nearly as much as the primary does.
Yeah.
Which certainly makes sense for a primary versus secondary objective. It's kind of like a tiebreak situation. But
yeah. I definitely think it's like, based on the nomenclature, that makes sense. And
yeah,
it's like, whatever. it would definitely be more interesting if the secondaries were not always parity uh kind of situations. They often are. So yeah, I don't know. That was one of the reasons I was like trying to pack Secret Mission into this list, is like well, if I can't score the primary one turn, maybe I can like sneak an extra victory point into the equation. I don't know. But it really hasn't been working out.
Yeah, no, I mean that makes sense.
So yeah, I don't know. What are your thoughts on Rebels? How you I mean, I
I'm
know
pretty excited about Sleeper Cell. I might try your framework and just kind of, I don't own land speeders.
you
So
don't own
I'm
any land speeders?
no, I have the snow speeders.
Yeah, I think those are pretty bad now.
Yeah, I agree. Unfortunately, I have
Yeah.
two of them. They look great. I spent a lot of time painting them and weathering them and all that. They look great, but I can't put them on a table right now, I don't think. So I think that I will probably start thinking about how to take a concept like that and work Sleeper Cell into it. It won't be 16 activations if that's the case. But
I mean, you might be able to do it like 15.
yeah, you can get to 14 or 15 for sure.
Yeah.
I also want to try the Flame RTs because I love Flame RTs. Going
I
back to
definitely think
the
the Flamer RTs could be good. I just think it's kind of a different list at that point.
Well, maybe it's a list that can handle Close the Pocket and Bunker Assault.
Maybe. So this is the thing that I found, is that the ATRTs, because they're at range 4, make it so that the pools that are coming in at them, armor is like enough to deal with.
Yeah, if you're at range 1 to 2 of something, you're gonna get
You're
slapped by a
still gonna die to
commando and
an
you're still
arc
gonna
charge,
die. Yeah,
right?
right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like arcs are just going up over the top of armor too. And so that, yeah, I don't know. That's my only hesitation with doing the flamers, is that I think that once you close the flamer range, the ATRT is probably get vaporized. um,
Yeah, that's fair.
yeah. Um,
And it's more expensive. So
it is. I definitely like there's a lot higher upside on them for sure. I
yep.
mean, is it black white or is it black black?
It's black.
Yeah, I mean that's a good flamethrower. uh,
Yeah.
it's definitely, I will say, like Josh has been playing the flamethrower dewbacks, which is obviously a very different animal with relentless.
I see what
But
you did there.
they've been really good.
Yeah, they definitely have a easier time getting the flamethrower on target. But it is all, it's a worse flamethrower. It's black white instead of black black.
That's sort of what I mean.
So
Like it's very good, and it's not
it's
an
not
art
as good.
pool,
Yeah.
right? And but I definitely think like they're more durable and they have an easier time delivering the package to the target,
Yeah.
for sure. Um,
And you have Vader also, which kind of leans into that same list concept even more.
yeah,
Whereas if you've got Flame RTs, they're kind of out there by themselves wanting to do the W key thing.
yeah. I definitely I tried this list with Commander Luke originally. I think all of the Force users that do not have Master of the Force are still like 30 points too expensive.
Yeah, they're just overpriced melee units.
They're overpriced
Considering,
melee. Yes. Yeah,
yeah.
100%. Like the fact that Luke is what, 130 base? 120 base. Yeah, it's just, I don't know. Why would I ever take this unit? Like I don't um yeah, I think I dare say that they may have, I don't even know if I'm thinking about this correctly, but I think they may have undervalued Force Push when they reduced the price of the majority of the Force users.
I mean, yeah, I think there's a couple ways to look at that. I don't know if
Yeah,
that's
I'm
quite
I'm
how
I'm
I
not
would
sure
phrase
that this
it.
is, yeah, I'm not sure that's the best way to say what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. But
But
Yeah, the case has been made previously that force push is just kind of a like inherent part of a force user's kit, and the reason that historically you were paying 160 plus points for a unit instead of 80 or 90 or 100, which is what most other characters were, was because of force push.
Yeah.
And I don't think you fix that problem by just making force push exorbitantly expensive and then cutting the cost of those force users.
Yeah. I definitely.
I'd rather they just stapled it all to their cards and costed them from there.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
just like the fact that Ahsoka is 145 points.
Yeah.
Doesn't have Master of the Force. Does she even have a recover card? Does she have
Yes.
one? Does she have one recover card?
Yeah.
Even then, I'm not sure that allows you to yeah, she's got to recover on New Beginning.
Yeah.
But like you can't pay 185 points for Ahsoka.
No, it's crazy.
Yeah.
And you can't pay 145 points for it either.
No, not without force.
Because then you're looking at a Wookiee that's 50% too expensive, basically.
And Wookiees are already too expensive.
Right. Yeah.
Right. And so, yeah, I definitely think the issue and the other issue here is that most of these force users don't have dice that are big enough to kill the units anymore.
Yeah, they have 5 to 6 dice in their pools, basically.
5 to 6 dice, you're like rolling like 3 to 4, Pierce 1 or Pierce 2. You aren't one-shotting units, which means you're often stuck in melee without force push against like a unit leader or two. With nowhere else to go.
Yeah, and you look at the force users that are succeeding, which is basically just Anakin and Vader.
Various versions
And
of Anakin Skywalker.
Right, yeah. And they're the ones that are specifically designed to be like blunders, basically.
Yeah. Yeah. And both of them have ways out of melee that aren't force push if you want it.
Right.
Either through tempted, force choke, additional attacks, whatever.
Right. Yeah. I'll be curious to see what they do with Jedi Luke.
Yeah, it definitely like I played him a couple times and I was just like, I don't know. like all right. I guess like the only turn he felt anywhere sort of effective was Son of Skywalker. And even then, it did not feel the same because you kind of can only still kill one unit.
Yeah, just it allows you to kill the last guy in a unit, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
You go from killing 80% of the unit to killing 100% of the unit.
Yeah.
Instead of killing 2 units, which is what like Anakin or Vader do when they get double attack cards.
Yeah. They just eat 2 units. So yeah, I don't know. I think that's been one of the things I've learned during this process was I really wanted this to be like a Commander Luke, like get in there list. And he just Commander Luke suffers from the fact that his command cards kind of don't do anything. I Am a Jedi is really good. I will give him if you're taking Commander Luke, it is for I Am a Jedi because his attack pool sucks enough that you're willing to sacrifice it to shut down their 2 best units.
Yeah, and that's the splashiest card, which we've talked before about how now with the new version it really overemphasizes just having splashy command cards because there are no setup turns anymore.
Yeah.
And Luke has a ton of great setup cards, My
Yes.
Ally and Full of Surprises and Return of the Jedi. Those are all great setup cards.
Yeah.
They're not splashy. They're not good Legion 2.6 cards.
No. I mean, they're fine. They're like they might as well be pushing assault though.
Right.
For the most part.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, the other thing, Luke doesn't have deflect. My God.
Yeah.
The difference between like old Luke obviously had deflect. The fact that this Luke has block and you need a dodge token to turn it on, obviously, like if you play his command cards, you get a dodge token, but those cards suck for anything other than that.
Right.
So you don't want to play them. And block is just I don't know. That's one of the reasons that the other like Anakin and Vader are succeeding is because deflect is actually monstrously good.
Yep. Yeah, just having it always on, just the always surging against ranged attacks
Is
amazing.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, it fixes a lot of problems,
Yep.
which is great. But yeah. Anyways, that's my soapbox on what I learned about Rebels this week.
All right. Well, that was enlightening. I'm excited as a prospective Rebel player. But I'm gonna mess around with. The first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna paint my sleeper cell. And
I
then
mean,
I'm
the
gonna
first
mess
thing you
around
should
with
do is
sleeper
paint your
cell.
Bad Batch, because if you're playing Rebels, you're playing Bad Batch.
That's fine. Yeah, that's true. I still have them back there. I have not yet.
Yeah.
But they should be pretty easy and fun to paint as well. So
Yeah,
I'm
I will.
considering doing like a Sabine style like graffiti armor on them.
Yeah, I think that would be dope. I think you can make.
It'd be a lot of work, but
Sure, that's fair. It would look really cool.
yeah,
And it's definitely, I mean, you got to paint the best Rebel unit to be look really cool, you know?
that's fair. Yep.
And
All right. Well, any final thoughts?
not even Rebels can escape clones. They have to turncoat here, and in order for Rebels to win, they must take clone troopers.
If you can't beat them, join them, right?
Exactly. If other people get free tokens, the way for you to win is to get free tokens too. So,
All right. Well, we are the Notorious Scoundrels. I'm Kyle.
and I'm Mike.
Stay fresh, cheese bags.